James Clapper, former Director of National Intelligence, is one of the 34 featured experts in the new documentary The Age of Disclosure, released in November 2025. This perked up my spidey senses because this guy is really an evil dude in my opinion. The film claims to expose an 80-year United States government cover-up of non-human intelligence and recovered craft. Clapper appears on camera describing UAP encounters as a grave national security issue and calls for full transparency. Here is the problem. Clapper is the same official who, according to 2025 declassifications ordered by DNI Tulsi Gabbard, personally directed the creation of the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment that falsely portrayed Donald Trump as a Russian asset. Internal emails show Clapper overriding the NSA's Mike Rogers, dismissing concerns about evidence and deadlines, and telling the intelligence community, quote, "That's our story and we're sticking to it." That same fabricated ICA relied heavily on the unverified Steele dossier, opposition research paid for by the Clinton campaign, which Clapper helped insert despite analyst objections. Clapper later signed the October 2020 letter with 50 other former officials labeling the Hunter Biden laptop story Russian disinformation, a claim the FBI knew was false at the time. So the question is direct. When a man with a documented record of orchestrating and defending politically motivated intelligence assessments is now positioned as the credible voice urging UFO disclosure, can the film itself be trusted? Or is the Age of Disclosure simply the next chapter in controlled narrative management from the very architect of Russiagate? The history says we have every reason to doubt him, and the project that elevates him as its expert. A deeper look into the film's 34 government insiders reveals a troubling pattern. At least 8 of these experts have direct ties to Democratic leadership, Obama-era intelligence operations, or actions aligned with the Russiagate narrative that weaponized unverified claims against President Trump. Beyond Clapper, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, a prominent Democrat who co-sponsored UAP transparency bills with Chuck Schumer, leverages her Intelligence Committee perch to shape disclosure. Yet her party's history of dismissing Trump-era leaks as disinformation raises questions about selective transparency. Representative Andre Carson, another Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, echoes this, having pushed for UAP hearings while voting against probes into FBI misconduct in the Steele dossier saga. Luis Elizondo, the film's narrator and former AATIP head under Obama, resigned citing excessive secrecy, but built his program on funding from Harry Reid, the Democratic Senate leader who funneled millions to UFO research amid broader intel overreach. Christopher Mellon, a registered Republican who served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense under Clinton and Obama, has perceived bipartisan credibility, but he supported Russiagate echoes by endorsing the 51 Intel officials' letter on the Hunter Biden laptop as potential Russian disinformation. Brett Fetterson, who was National Security Council Director under Obama, oversaw aviation security policies. He created surveillance expansions that has now turned into controlled UAP disclosure. Even Hal Puthoff, the CIA-linked physicist, can be traced to remote viewing programs under Democratic administrations that confused science and spycraft in ways that fueled conspiracy skepticism about the UAPs. These people aren't incidental to the film, but key figures woven into the documentary's fabric, telling those of us who check that the Age of Disclosure isn't neutral revelation, but a curated echo chamber where deep state veterans repackage their decade-long concealment as enlightenment, which destroys their credibility, and now creates controlled narratives about the threats far beyond the stars. With so many compromised voices, the real disclosure might be how easily the deep state can seamlessly change the narrative to evade accountability. Shifting to the Republican Voices in the Age of Disclosure movie uncovers a similar web of establishment ties, where even figures from the current Trump administration lend an illusion of bipartisan legitimacy while amplifying the film's core theme of alarmism. The one that caught my eye immediately was Marco Rubio, the current Secretary of State. He stands out as the most peculiar inclusion in this movie, given his place in the White House inner circle, so I did a little research on this. Rubio was interviewed on The Hannity Show on Fox on December 2nd, and basically he said that this interview was done a few years back when he was a senator, not in his current cabinet role. He explicitly stated that he's not disavowing his own contributions and stands by the whistleblower reports of secret programs and restricted airspace incursions by UAPs, but he distances himself by calling out the film's editing as simplifying things to sell the show. It appeared that he was trying to mitigate the movie while redirecting focus to national security concerns and secrecy of past administrations. He also seemed a bit uncomfortable with the movie's hype-driven presentation, without outright rejecting it. In the movie, Rubio comes off as forward-looking, demanding full disclosure on recovered non-human craft and technology that was handed off to private contractors for reverse engineering. That tells me that there is technology in the hands of various private contractors that must be looked into. He frames this as a national security necessity, saying, "We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours." This appears to be a calculated push for transparency from a man who's long decried the stigma created around UFOs, which stifles serious inquiry. Rubio also predicted that a future president, implying it might be his boss, will soon confirm we're not alone, which will kickstart an era of transparency and a global arms race for alien technology. Other Republican experts repeat the same security-focused viewpoint. Senator Mike Rounds, a co-sponsor of UAP transparency bills alongside Democrat Chuck Schumer, warns that airspace violations are potentially adversarial, which blurs the lines between foreign enemies and extraterrestrial incursions. Personally, any bill that a deep state asset like Schumer supports is suspect to me. Representative Tim Burchett, a vocal UFO advocate, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna Echo, calls for declassification while tying UAPs to military readiness gaps. Burchett claims that the government's stonewalling is a betrayal of public trust. Christopher C. Miller, Trump's acting Secretary of Defense during his first term, alleges compartmentalized programs that are so secretive that even presidents must be cleared to know about them. Former Representative Mike Gallagher, ex-chair of the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, turns his alleged China expertise to UAPs as potential espionage, while military voices like Colonel James D. Cobb, former NORAD director, and pilot Ryan Graves detail encounters as unambiguous threats to aviation safety and deterrence. The overall framework of this documentary is one of fear of extraterrestrial threats, but it's not clear that all the witnesses intended to contribute to the fear agenda. So tell me this. If these ETs have such advanced technology, are hostile to us, and are such a national security threat that must be immediately addressed, why haven't they obliterated us years ago? Because there's much more than they're telling us. Many online have a feeling similar to mine, that this is an echo chamber for believers that shifts the narrative from credible transparency pleas into speculative doomsday scenario, with claims of UFOs warping space-time, surveilling nukes, or seeding global psyops. Apparently, the final editing turned this movie into a fear-based tool for the deep state, rather than a genuine call for disclosure. It all smells exactly like the Jeffrey Epstein transparency calls. Another, be careful what you ask for thing. Does the deep state and their puppets really want full transparency of what they have been doing to people on our planet for 80 years? And then there's this. If the age of disclosure truly aims to alert humanity to an imminent threat from non-human intelligence, as its experts like Clapper repeatedly state, why does it cost $20 to rent it on Prime? Why wasn't there a free global release funded by philanthropists, governments, or even the film's insider allies? This isn't just illogical, but it also undercuts the urgency narrative. If it's such an urgent existential threat, why didn't they provide a benevolent awakening that would guarantee viral dissemination? Because the people that felt compelled to get this movie out are not humanitarians. If I mention super thanks tips or channel memberships to help support my costs, I'm blasted by some for not being authentic. But these same people will pay $20 to view one video by people who clearly are not only out for the money, but expect and induce people to pay to be brainwashed. So if you're trying to sift through lies, you don't need to even see this movie unless you are able to see it for what it is, which screams of a controlled rollout for the purposes of creating a foundation that extraterrestrials exist, and we should fear them. ETs have been covered up for 80 years and all of a sudden, they are a threat to humanity. It doesn't appear that was the intent of many of these experts who may have innocently participated in the hopes of final full disclosure. It's always in the final edit or how the information is spun. Users on various social media platforms agree that the movie is bogus, but imply that it's a drip feed of revelations to test the waters, harvest data on viewers, and manage fallout without full chaos. I disagree. I do agree that there's a strong possibility that it's deep state propaganda, but I tend to believe that it's what we've talked about many times: limited hangout disclosure. Limited hangout refers to a controlled release of truth mixed with disinformation, so the public never gets the full picture. There are literally hundreds of truthers echoing limited hangout narratives. Here's how it works. A small part of the truth is intentionally leaked, enough to make people think they're finally being told something, and this is exactly what's happening. But the full truth remains hidden, as crucial details stay classified so the public who never understands what is really happening. The technique mixes true facts with false narratives, so the public becomes confused and the real truth loses credibility. The goal is not real disclosure, it's control, which allows them to manage public perception, maintain plausible deniability, shape the narrative, and distract from deeper covert events that they are hiding. What is happening is that the deep state can no longer hide that ETs exist and that the government has been lying to us for decades. It's inevitable. They tried to make us not believe our eyes by calling the sightings drones and anomalies, but it's just too obvious now. So people like Clapper are calling for the transparency that he didn't provide for years. If this were a white hat operation, I'd say they are testing the water and managing disclosure chaos, but I don't think that's the case here. This is clearly hangout disclosure. The hangout is the small truth they choose to reveal which can no longer be lied about. In this movie, the limited hangout that they disclose is that we are not the only intelligent life, while the truth that remains protected is that there are good ETs that wish us no harm and are assisting us in our evolution. They can't let you know this because they will lose all power when we accept the higher consciousness that will accompany this evolution into a spacefaring, higher evolved society. I think that the deep state was cornered to admit the inevitable truth, but they are distracting from the fact that they lied by creating a fear of these aliens. Clearly, this movie is one more attempt to discredit and vilify the Galactic Federation of Worlds and the current administration. Now, after 80 years, Trump is being the one accused of hiding things. That's the focus of the current deep state narrative. Put constant pressure on Trump like he's the one that's been hiding this for so long. And it's gonna backfire on them. Guys, think of this. If you understand the interplay between the light and dark or the good and bad, then you realize that if there are bad extraterrestrials, there are necessarily good extraterrestrials. This is the energetic way of the universe. So if you choose to give the deep state $20 to watch their manipulation, it's your choice. Just realize that the danger of watching a limited hangout is that you're given just enough truth to feel informed while the real truth is buried, leaving you unknowingly manipulated by a controlled narrative. Remember that while the truth waits for no one, it rises when the world is finally ready to see it. Are you ready?